Hello, Earthlings.
What is up?
I didn't know what I was going to say there, so I just decided. I think it's from like a TV show way back when.
A long time ago.
Third
How are
rock,
you, man?
Third Rock from the Sun, I think. I don't know. I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm well. Kicking off episode number 93.
Yes, this little show called the Fervent Four Show that just two bored dudes on March 25th-ish time frame decided, hey, let's just press record and see what happens.
That's what's wild to think, man. As we approach number 100, we're getting closer and closer to 2 years. So a lot has changed since then. And
stay tuned for a big episode 100. We're gonna have balloons,
confetti,
some sort of audio craziness. Who knows? Dogs, puppies, cats. I mean, whatever. Swimming pools.
Yeah.
We're gonna go big. We're gonna have DJs. We're gonna have everything. Hot dogs, because nothing is complete without hot dogs.
That's right.
Something that maybe not everyone knows is that we did audio-fy these files as well. You can check all of them out online wherever you listen to your podcast. Just search Fervent 4. It's a beautiful thing. So you don't just have to watch us. You can listen to us as well. We got another returning guest.
We don't have many, but so this week we have Mike Descher, and he is an old school guest. Episode number 8 we had him on, and that's when we had no idea what was happening back then. So
do you ever like I didn't know what episode it was until you guys just told me this. But what's interesting is I think back and I'm I sometimes we do the scroll of where we're looking at episodes.
Dude, it's such a great time lapse.
It is a great time lapse. Just Tim always looks exactly the same.
No,
you look a little tan today, but that's different. But it's just interesting to then be like, oh, I totally forgot we had that guest, or oh my gosh, I thought that guest was earlier or not, and so. It'll be interesting to see what's changed. If you recall, when we first had Mike on, episode 8, so that was probably late May of 2020, heart of lockdown probably, or maybe coming out of the lockdown, and conferences, definitely not going on. He did.
And for those that don't know, that's Mike's business is setting up. He lives in the conference space, so when he's traveling to Orlando or Vegas, to the biggest of conferences, and then everything is shut down, then the world is turned upside down. So it'll be interesting to hear how things have changed in the last 2 years.
Yeah, because it has been a while, and I don't know. I felt like, and we were talking to him a little bit beforehand, but it's interesting because I feel like in this past summer, 2021, things were open again. Everyone's like, yo, let's go. I was starting to schedule conferences again, speaking gigs, and then it was like, never mind. But
not so fast. Well,
not so fast, my friend. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen.
What's up, Mike?
How you guys doing? To all the listeners out there, just remember, after this episode, you can binge listen for 93 hours of Fervent 4. So if you're driving between here and Williamsburg Peninsula area and Washington, D.C., you got plenty of time when the snow falls this weekend.
That's right.
And this is when I say, hi, Mom. Thanks for listening to those 93 episodes.
Dude, you probably could have got through most of them if you were stuck on 95 a couple weeks ago.
That's it. But it is a great honor to be back.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. So your world was turned upside down a couple of years ago. What has happened since then?
Well, it's been kind of interesting. I think I'll start off, if I can show this, since pictures mean more than words. This is the graph of the trade show industry from 2017 to present.
Gotcha. So for those that are listening,
the graph is really high on the left, 2017, and significantly lower, two-thirds lower probably on what is that, 2021?
It basically dropped from about of people that participate in companies from about 20% to 5% or 6%. But there's lots of statistics on the web people can look up on their own. But the trade show and conference industry has morphed itself, which is actually kind of good and bad in many ways. The bad news is obviously attendance is down. CES that was just held in Vegas, which is one of the largest shows.
Yeah. How did that go? Have you heard back from your people how that went? Because
Yeah.
I heard criticism and I heard things on both sides in terms of should they have had it? Was it too risky? But then they pulled it off. What did you hear on your end?
Well, the good news was the Las Vegas Tourist Association, which handles a lot of it as far as managing, the COVID stuff and, logistics and that sort of thing. They published some figures. So in 2019, the attendance was 171,000, and this year it was 40,000. But a lot of people forget when they use those numbers that those numbers also include the press and include the people that work in the trade show booths, the companies that are exhibiting. Mm-hmm. So of that 40,000, about 5,000 of them were press and exhibitors. And the exhibit floor was dramatically down. It was down 70% with exhibitors. That's the bad news. The good news is it was up dramatically for small business. So once you got the big players out of the way, the Intels and Microsofts and those kind of people,
they had an opportunity to
have 100 by 100 foot booths or bigger. More real estate became available. So a company that would normally get a 10 by 10 out in the woods got a 20 by 20 where people would actually see them. And there was a lot of discussion and things. So a lot of new innovative products that were shown that people got really good exposure. That was really, really good. And from my viewpoint, it was, great, because when I go to trade shows to look around, I always start at the back and look for the little guys, because that's where the innovation and stuff is really happening. So I think that's a good thing. The bad news is Omicron, just as we were starting to pull out, Omicron set in. And a lot of people in my industry who were just barely digging out, that had a lot of employees and warehouses and this and that, it really kicked them, because suddenly people were canceling contracts where they were halfway through building booths and everything else. So refunds and all kinds of crazy.
So touching on that real quick, has contract language changed since 2020, or is it now you just have to get insurance?
Well, you should always have insurance. That's the first thing. But on my end of the business, there's virtually no insurance that you can get when somebody backs out of a show. The only thing you have is a contract, and the contract usually states you have to pay for physical things up to a certain point. So if I printed all the fabric or stuff or counters or whatever for your show, your hanging sign or whatever, you've got to pay me for that. But you don't have to pay me for all of the hours invested in planning and consulting with you and all that part of it. And that's what puts a lot of people out of business. The only reason that we have survived, and we just celebrated 20 years in December and had quite an interesting call with all the people involved, is that for those people that don't know, MediaGroup is actually a co-op. I have no employees. I have no warehouse. Instead, we use 100% contractors that work remotely, and we have always worked remotely. And by doing that, as the market went down, a lot of the people that had 100,000 square foot warehouses with pieces in them and 50, 60, 100 employees, we lost probably 70% of the players in our industry, which was really too bad. And we lost an awful lot of the sub people, like the guys that screw things together, the contractors, the electricians, the guys on a show floor that help out, that lay carpet.
Just the businesses just had turnover,
they just went into other businesses because there wasn't anywhere they could go,
and they needed to make money.
Closed down, and it gets real hard. I mean, imagine yourself as an electrician, and you decided you'd like to work in trade shows because you could work inside, where it's at least cooler maybe or warmer, and somebody calls you up and says, "Hey, I need you for 4 days, and I'm going to pay you $65 an hour," and you think that's great, and then a week before you go to work, they say, "Oh, never mind, the COVID propped up, and they canceled the show," and that happens to you 10 or 12 times in a row, and you got a family to feed.
Yeah,
wow.
Makes it hard, but it is helping small businesses. So
it's interesting, and so I will likely get canceled for saying a comment like this, but I'm going to say it. So it's almost like you look at some of these scenarios, and it's like, okay, stuff's open, right? Go to a basketball game, right? You can fly, you can go to a restaurant, you can do all these things with massive amounts of people, and it seems like some people are getting more attention by bashing some bigger groups happening than others. And it just like, to me, it's like, people were talking about, oh, is the Super Bowl going to get moved? Is it going to get canceled? Something like that. 100,000 people at the stadium. And it's like, well, they played there all year. What's the difference? Right. People are all out in other places. So it's just like, does it seem like we're going to see, just because everything's open, it's just whether or not people go, I guess, at this point? Or are you seeing some restrictions still on some of your conferences? I mean, could they have had 170,000 people at CES this year to match 2019, or was there restrictions there?
No, there's restrictions basically in every convention center and conference, and basically every hotel.
So what's the difference between that and a sporting venue?
That's a good question. I really don't know. Other than I do know that some stadiums, depending on the stadium, don't fill the capacity. So they do. Still. Yeah, they may seat 25,000 people, but they may only have seats available for 15,000, and they separate them. They put little things on the seats or whatever to keep people at least a seat away from each other. But it depends on what state you're in. It depends on how the people feel in that particular region or state or city, whether they go or not. In my side, it all comes down to legal liability, because you have companies that have legal liability where they force people to go work a trade show, and you don't know who's going to be there. Orlando is a good example. I hear all the time, and God bless Orlando. They did a great job. The first thing they did was spend millions of dollars to upgrade their convention center, and it's a very safe convention center. But once you step out the doors, you're still in Orlando. And you get a lot of people from a lot of different states and a lot of people from Florida, and many of them are unvaccinated. Many of them don't wear masks.
So like in terms of like the upgrades, they like improve like ventilation systems and that kind of thing, where like the exhaust everything up as opposed to around.
Yeah, like Orlando went through it, and they put in the highest quality HEPA air conditioners that they could, the same they use in hospitals. That filtered the air down. They made sure that their doors close quicker, and that some escalators were actually taken out and put in different sides. So you went up on one side of an area and then down on the other, rather than going, side by side on an escalator.
Oh, wow.
When they're doing the trade show things, the aisles used to be 10 or 12 feet wide, and now they're about 20 feet wide. And they stagger the people coming into the show. So maybe some people can only come in from 10 to noon and some from noon to 4.
Are you seeing that is venue to venue difference?
Yeah, it's venue to venue. It's producer to producer. It's city to city, convention center to convention center. It's always a toss up, because I could look at my trade show calendar now, and if you looked at it and you didn't know any better, you'd think, wow, business is going to be great. But everybody I know that's in the industry looks at the thing and goes, okay, which ones are going to continue? Which ones will cancel at the end so that I can mitigate my risk? Because I don't want to talk people into or work with clients that may just back out at the end because it's something that happened on the news last night. And they're willing to lose, 50, 60, 100,000 or more. It's cheaper for them to back out than it is for them to go and risk liability of an employee suing them.
Who other than Orlando and Vegas are the big locations that things are happening?
Chicago, McCormick is large, and amazingly enough, I haven't heard very much about Chicago. I know that they're doing smaller events, but I don't know of any large shows that have gone on. There was a big digital imaging show that would have normally happened in Las Vegas that they moved to Baltimore, and it had a big drop in attendance, but it was nice that it went on. It really varies. There are many more conferences and outdoor events. So like here locally, companies like Culture Fix and different chambers and things that do a lot of outdoor music events and craft
instead
events.
of the indoor stuff. So they're trying to do things outside.
They're growing a lot, and they should be, because they're safer and they're outside and all that. Of course, then when we get colder weather, that becomes a regional thing also. Here in Florida, you can do more outside events all year.
Right. Yeah, I would think that places like Orlando and Miami would be plus the state is just wide open anyway, that that they would be almost have the first mover advantage and do well for themselves.
Yeah. What I'm amazed is I'm from California, from Los Angeles, and you would think that Los Angeles would be just doing really, really well in that space. But traditionally and even currently, they're doing really, really bad in that space. The city of Los Angeles has always kind of not been able to get out of their own way to have one-to-many events, even though they have a beautiful conference center and they've got beautiful locations to have things, and that it just doesn't seem to, the tourism council doesn't seem to get it together.
Well, they'll have a lot of people there in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Zach, you shared with me Super Bowl ticket prices.
Yeah, 5 G's. Yeah, $5,000
that's like
hit. So that's like a
up top.
Oh yeah, the worst seats you could get. So that's like a bucket list item for me, right?
Yeah.
And I look every year, and it's always about the same price, right? About $5,000. And I'm just like, yo, like 10 G's, and I don't get to watch the halftime or I don't get to watch the commercials. Like, is this worth it? Like, I think SoFi looks really cool though, so it'd be cool to be in a place like that. I mean, I'm not going to go to the Super Bowl, but I do. It's interesting. It's interesting how the Super Bowl is going to, in my guess, bring a crap ton of attention and people to the city, but other things can't. So it's so like, to your point, it's odd that, like, it seems like the event matters, obviously, but I don't know, like it's events are a weird thing now, right? So like, depending on where you live, some people are like, screw it, let's go, and some people are like, yo, I'm not ready. And to me, it's like, do whatever you want. Like, I'm not here to make an opinion on someone. Like, you want to, like, I was the guy that was, bathed in hand sanitizer for 2 years. Like, I like, some people would say I still do that, but it's like, yo, make the decision you want. If you want to go there, then go. And it seems like at some point that's going to be where we're turning to, but who knows? As a business owner, knowing that things are just juggling, like,
I mean, what does a business owner need to know right now if they were to say, hey, we scrounged up a little bit of marketing money, we want to go to a trade show? What advice do you give these folks?
It's really difficult because for some reason, as we all know, the issue of the virus, all the viruses, has gotten sort of politicized and divided for some silly reason. I think if I had employees in my company, I would make sure that they were all vaccinated, that they'd all have to wear masks, that they're all social distancing, they're not sharing rooms in a hotel, that kind of thing. And I think most companies are kind of doing that, but it adds extra expense. So I don't know. It gets right back, Tim, to the whole idea of it's kind of up to you and how safe you are. Like, Zach, if you go to the Rose Bowl, one of the things that I'm looking at that's going to be interesting is LA is still kind of in a lockdown. They've got mask requirements for everything, eating indoors, all of that. They're social distancing. They're keeping a lot of restaurants at minimum occupancy, outdoor eating only. But they're going to have an influx of a bunch of people from around the country. And there's a lot of people from around the country that goes, hey, you can't tell me what to do. I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm not getting vaccinated. I never will. But I'm going to the Rose Bowl, forgetting that the Rose Bowl is a private event owned by somebody else, and you're paying for the privilege to see it.
And that was one thing. I just recently flew. I flew home Sunday night, and like one of the things that I noticed is like the job of the flight attendant now is nothing more than mask patrol. Yeah, I mean, that's all they were doing is just enforcing masks while you're on the plane. I was like,
oh really?
I would not want.
So like walking by and just be like,
yeah, yeah, and they tell you, if you're taking a nap or you fall asleep, make sure your mask is on so we don't have to wake you up and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, like that's now their job. They're just enforcing mask wearing.
Do they still give you food and drink?
Alcohol is no longer a thing on flights anymore.
And they recommend you not to eat or drink.
Yeah, and and that was the other big thing. The biggest announcement I heard while flying was reminding everybody that it is illegal to bring on board your own alcohol. But
when did that? Why is that? When did that change?
Well, apparently, but apparently they stopped serving it when Corona and COVID started. When they stopped meal service and all that kind of stuff, they stopped alcohol service, and then they just never brought back alcohol service. So I don't know if people just need to it's something to help them fall asleep. Maybe they need to relax themselves. I don't know what the deal is, but it's like, yeah, people like they need the booze on a flight. I don't know. It's weird.
It's fear of crashing.
I'm not seeing a lot of events in the southeastern Virginia area, really. Not that there was a ton before, but like it doesn't seem like there's a lot. Are you just seeing that the landscape is people are like, I don't have the appetite for it? Like what are you seeing locally as kind of the reason why?
Again, it gets down regionally, Zach. I mean, if you look at our area, you look at Virginia Beach. Virginia Beach is still having a lot of events. Their convention center, they're doing things. They're doing a lot of outdoor things. They also have the highest COVID infections in the state. So, you take a bunch of people that are making their own decisions as to what they're going to do and protect themselves, protect others, and put them in a closed space, your numbers go up.
So one thing that seems to be happening is the language is starting to change in the sense of, hey, this is something that we're going to have to live with. It's just we have to continue to move on. As that happens, has the conference and trade show space, have they started changing? And then the second part of that question is, what's the lag time saying from the time they're like, hey, we're having events to the point where you can actually schedule, plan, and have an event? I mean, you can't just on the snap of a finger say, hey, we're having our trade show tomorrow. I mean, there's some lag time involved. So has more planning started, and how long is that lag from the time that you plan to the time that you can kick something off?
Well, planning is, if I can answer that question and knew the real answer, Tim,
yeah,
I would have more money than Virgin Galactic. Anyway, it's very, very difficult because the trade show industry, there's two sides. I call it all one-to-many events. So one-to-many events are anything from you having a party at your house to having a CES, right? Mm-hmm. Just a bunch of people put together. If you're going to do a trade show of any kind, which means you're going to have a booth of some kind, or even you just have a table and a pull-up banner and, a table throw or something, it takes about 3 months of planning beforehand, and sometimes more, because you have to find a space at the convention center. You have to sign the rental contracts for your floor space first. And you usually have to do that 3 to 6 months out in order to get any kind of good spot with good visibility. And then you got to work with a firm like ours to get all the logistics and things handled for you. And then you get down to the wire where everything's pretty much ready to go. Most things need to be at a convention center about 3 weeks before the show starts. So when you consider all that lag time, 3 weeks is a long time right now when the CDC gets on TV or Dr. Fauci or anybody else, at least is related to COVID, and says, well, it's going up today. And then a week later, it's going down. Or you should wear this kind of mask or that kind of mask. And it changes people's decision making. If it's an outdoor event, it doesn't seem to matter too much because most people will go to an outdoor event, not care about COVID. So, and then there's the other side of it, which is kind of like the remote worker thing now. So companies are going, do I really need to do a big trade show? Maybe I need to do 10 smaller trade shows. A good example of that is we finally got to do a big trade show with a client, and it was in Orlando. But their normal spend for their trade show was about $200,000. This year, they had the same size booth. They cut it down to about $50,000. And they only sent 2 people instead of 12 people. So it changes a lot, and they were able to pull out. But in talking with the CEO, he said, Mike, just want to let you know, we're probably not going to do this show anymore. We've made the decision. Instead, we want to buy 10 or 12 smaller booths from you. And then, I'm sorry, hang on just a second. And then we're going to give them to our executives and salespeople and business development people and that, and they're going to go out and do regional-based shows. So that's starting to happen. The industry is starting to sell more portable booths and that than the bigger booths.
Does that, you think that's going to sustain? Is this smaller model is what we're going to see, or do you think we go back to the bigs?
Well, it's for the guys that specialize in doing the big booths, that do really, really large ones. Luckily for me, there's only 3 or 4 that do booths that are bigger than, say, 100 by 100 square feet, because they're logistical nightmares. They require a ton of people to work on them, lots of good connections, a lot of money, a lot of cash put out up front. So those people have been having a really hard time. And the smaller companies and the ones that contract a lot like we do are doing okay. It's the guys in the middle, like always, that are getting hurt.
So I'm curious how the supply chain and logistic things that are happening, has that had an impact on you and the space, the trade show space?
It's had an impact. Yeah, well, sure. The show down in Florida that we just did, give you a good example. They were dragging their feet to finishing signing the contract because they weren't sure what was happening. They finally decided, okay, we're going to scale it down to this. It's going to look like this. We need a hanging sign. And said, fine. We signed the contract. The next day I started placing the orders for the hanging sign and that. Well, it turned out when I went to purchase the hanging sign, nobody had one the size that we needed. And there's only about a dozen companies, maybe a little more than that, maybe 20 that do these fabric hanging signs. And I finally found one that said that, yeah, we can do it. We've got the parts. Everybody else was running out of parts because they come from China. So they had the fabric that they print here, but they didn't have the aluminum frames to stretch it around. So the company said, sure, it's fine. We get down to about 2 weeks before the show, and I'm panicking and going, hey guys, where's the sign? It should have been here 2 weeks ago. And they said, oh, well, we got a problem. We ran out of tubes. I said, so how do I get a sign? He said, we don't know. So I had to go back to the company and tell them it's a company that's an international company. They're based in Turkey and also Silicon Valley. And I had to let them know that, hey, I know you already paid for your sign, but you're not getting a sign this year. And the CEO's like, and people find us how? We're obviously getting our money back, right? But how do people find us?
So is it full refunds? Like, what is the situation of that? Like, how do you, okay.
Had to give them their money back. Sure.
Wow. What?
So all the hours on the phone, and maybe not hours, maybe it was 3 or 4 hours, calling different places around, people that I know, people I don't know, people that referred me to others. It was kind of like scrambling for toilet paper. Remember when we were scrambling for toilet paper in town? And somebody would call, or they'd go on Nextdoor or Facebook or something and go, hey,
yeah, I sold a bunch of that.
Got 10 rolls.
I was selling 6-packs for $200.
Yeah. I was selling face masks. We went into the face mask business for 6 months.
Well, I remember that, right? They were $30-$40 a mask.
Yeah.
It felt like it. It wasn't that much. But.
Well, that last conversation, we did talk about how much the markup was. Maybe it was like 30 or 40%. I don't know, but it was a crazy markup.
Yeah. And now it's done kind of the flip thing since it came back on. If everybody would remember, for some reason, the public has a limited memory. When they were talking about masks, they said, well, it's better to wear a cloth mask than nothing, which is true. But they never came out and said a cloth mask is just as good as a disposable mask you'd get in the hospital or something, but don't buy the ones that the surgeons in the hospitals use because they're in short supply. So now they're saying cloth masks are bad. You shouldn't wear them at all because they really didn't do you any good at all. It just made you feel better. And the regular masks are okay, but you really need to have a KN95 or an N95 mask. Mm-hmm. So all the people that supply those have now brought those in. And instead of them being 30 cents, they're $2 a piece. And as a distributor, you got to buy at least 1,000 or 1,500 of them at a time. And the CDC could come on the air a week from now and say, you know, you don't really need those. The disposable ones are okay. And then you're stuck with all of this inventory.
Is a lot of the mask stuff, is that still coming from China? Or has
all the, well, not all the masks. We say a good 85% are made in China. They're all American companies like 3M and MacRite are the two biggest ones.
Right.
And they come from China. Everything.
I mean, yeah. Well, and that was the thing. Like 2 years ago, everyone was like, "Yes, we got to reduce the dependence of critical supplies like this away from China and bring them back to the States." So has any of that happened yet, or is it still people have a short memory and they forgot?
No, there were a couple of companies that did it, and they did surprisingly well. But they tried to ramp up their manufacturing, and like all things made in America, it's more money. And people would go, "Oh, I'll just wear a cloth mask. I'll wear 2 cloth masks." My grandmother made one. My wife made one. I'll wear both of them. I should be okay. And I'm all boosted and vaxxed and all that stuff anyway. So what's the harm? What's the chance? So
what's the most popular? What is the word Chotsky? Is that what the giveaways? Swag. What's the most popular swag? I would imagine for a while it seemed like I didn't go to many things, but I mean it was like guaranteed to get hand sanitizer, a mask or something. So what's the most popular thing that you're sourcing right now?
Those are still big. Amazingly, pens and stylus pens are still the number one industry-wide. People still do those, especially ones with stylus now, so they don't have to touch anything. For a while, it was these things that look like a funny key with only in that you use to open doors with. But since the CDC said, no, the vaccine doesn't transfer that way, really, it's airborne. You know, people are still doing masks. A lot of people just are not doing swag so much anymore. And the ones that are doing it smart and spending more money. So, for instance, one of the things that we never really got involved in, but over the last year, we did get involved in it because we started talking about how our company works remotely. And other companies, we discovered that there's a lot of management in companies that don't know how to manage remote workers. So we've always talked with people about that. And also a lot of remote workers don't know how to work from home remotely. So there's a lot of gadgets for doing those kind of things that cost more. Like it might be a webcam that costs $30. We give those. But we've also changed to recognition, because if you've got a bunch of employees that are out working remotely and have never done it, they lose this great feeling of your boss coming by and slapping you on the back and saying, "Hey, thanks for the good job," or "Thanks for doing that," or a coworker going by and saying, "Hey, I heard you did so and so." So we've gotten into the recognition business a little bit also.
So is that kind of the biggest pivot that you would say, like that you guys have done over the last 2 years? You're still selling things, it's just who you're selling to and what they are buying is different. I mean, I would assume that changes frequently anyway, from an industry perspective.
Well, we started out as a consulting firm, basically as a business consulting firm, and that worked its way into promotional products, that worked its way into trade shows. And then, we had the first pivot, which was selling more promotional items and face coverings, masks, and hand sanitizers and all that kind of stuff, PPE. So we did that. And then this last big call we had with everybody who we hadn't talked with, a lot of the people that we all worked together with until this year, 20th anniversary. And we started talking a lot about working remotely and what a great knowledge group we have of people that were working remotely before there was video conferencing. We were doing, just teleconferencing on a phone and things like that. And there are a lot of companies that have reached out to us lately that need some consulting help.
That was one of the things that we did talk about last time as well, was hey, how do you outfit your a personal office? So are companies now purchasing like kits, for lack of better terms? That, hey, you get a chair, you get a camera, you get a microphone. Is that kind of thing happening, or is that the direction you see it going?
Yeah, there are a lot of companies that are working through human resources in big companies, that if you're going to be a remote worker, they send somebody out and they give you a laptop or whatever. They look at your workspace, figure out what you need to make it comfortable, make it ergonomic, make sure you got a good microphone, all of those things. But what they're not doing is they're not helping people on an emotional side of how do you manage yourself working remotely, because now all of a sudden you could work yourself to death and work 18 hours a day and sit in front of your computer and think that, oh my God, what happens if my boss asks me what I'm doing? I'm going to get fired if I'm not in front of my computer. So there's nobody teaching time management. There's nobody on both sides of the equation, the management structure and the employee structure. What do you do? How do you gauge your time? How do you build a calendar? How do you do that? And firms, yesterday I sat in on a webinar. It was kind of misrepresented. It was about cold calling. And I thought, boy, that's interesting. I haven't heard anybody do a cold calling webinar in a while. And I was expecting it to be, hi, I'm Mike from MediaGroup. You don't know me at all. And, I'd like to learn about your business or whatever. And no, it was about using a calendar program, which I won't mention because they're not paying us. They're paying you guys. But a big calendar program that's used by a lot of companies. I use it myself. And how you integrate that. But their idea of cold calling was, let's put a link in your emails. Let's put a link in your social media broadcast, in your newsletters and all that, to set up an appointment with you, so you could then talk. So they're not cold calling. They're emailing and hoping somebody's going to go, oh, I'll click that and schedule an appointment. So to me, it's a different thing. But like you said, Tim, I'm kind of an old school guy.
New age, the new age cold call.
New age cold call. I need to talk to you.
So speaking of old school, is the business card industry dead?
No, not at all.
Really?
Yeah, it's really funny. It's actually kind of growing. And the people that are getting business cards, matter of fact, I did your business cards. They look like mine.
Yeah. The best business cards that I ever have had, by the way. So I asked if they're dead because I always get complimented on those cards, and now if I do go out, I'm so out of practice I don't bring them with me anyway. So.
And you got a lifetime supply, so you should bring a whole stack and set it down for it.
Well, that was going to be my question. Like, when was the last card you handed out? Like, are people? I don't even think I've been to a networking event. Like, I've been to one networking event in the last 2 years, and I remember I made it a point. I was like, I shook a hand, and I was like, I think this is the first hand I've
It's
shook.
so awkward, right?
Really weird.
You just look at each other and you don't know what to do. You bow, you shake hands, you do the elbow bump kind of thing. Yeah.
This other, I was at a meeting the other day, and a client of mine was introducing himself to someone else. I was out of the conversation, but I happened to be at the table. They're having a conversation. The guy turns over, big mittens of a hand, and shakes my hand. I'm like, oh God, this is hand number 6. Hand number 6 in the last 2 years. Please, I need to go and wash up.
And I'm really bad because I'll leave a meeting like that and I'll get in my car and I've got hand sanitizer and I do that. And before I talk to anybody, when I get home, I wash my hands.
Yeah, I won't tell you what Tim thinks I'm a germaphobe.
Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong with that. But people are giving out cards. There's a lot of cards, but there are also a lot of people that have discovered digital cards. Which is
remember back in the day, LinkedIn had something back in the day. It was
Cam card or something like that.
Something, man. I don't know. It was you tap phones or something, and then it would exchange information or something. But so is that? Yeah. Talk to us about where the new direction of business cards.
Okay. Well, my favorite direction, which is really is kind of a short, funny story, is I went to a networking meeting and talked with a guy there. And he's actually, I run into a lot of these people that call themselves brand consultants. So he was a brand consultant and he brought a sample of something that he just did for someone. And it was going to be their business card, but they're going to send it out. I don't know if you've seen these. And I was just looking around my desk. I don't have one to show you. But they're like a 4x5 greeting card, I guess you would say, and you can print them on the front, the back, and the inside. You open it up, and it's got a little 1x2 inch video screen, and you can pop up to a 2-minute or 3-minute video into these cards. Now, the bad news is when they first came out from China, they used to cost about $10 a piece, and you had to buy 100 of them at a time. So other than large companies that were doing like a major product launch or something like that, they didn't get sold. But now they're down to about $3 a piece in the same kind of quantities, which is actually fairly affordable when you think about it. And people are handing those out, so you get a chance to hand something to somebody that they can actually hear your pitch. You know, we talked about rocket pitch and the Star Peninsula pitches, and elevator pitches, and everybody's pitching.
Interesting.
If you can do your pitch and put it in a card and hand it to somebody, and every time somebody asks me, well, God, they're $3 a piece. I'm going to give these to somebody, and they're $3 a piece. That's a lot of money. And I always pop back and go, well, what's your customer acquisition cost? And 9 times out of 10, they'll go, my what?
Right. I mean, if you can get it for $3 as opposed to $50, then that's a pretty big savings.
Yeah, I mean, all you got to do is watch Shark Tank every now and then. There will always be one company that'll get that question, and generally it'll be some social media company that's only selling online, and they'll say, "Oh, my customer acquisition cost is only $38 a person," and the sharks will all go, it's great. So $3 to maybe get a customer, that's not so bad.
Well, and it forces your hand to make sure that you put a good quality product together, to make sure that you are taking the time to choose wisely in terms of who you give this to. So, that's not a bad thing.
I think I told you the story, Tim. I used to know a guy that would sell his business cards for $1 a piece. This goes back quite a ways, but he just decided that if he told people it cost $1 to get his business card, they would keep it. And if they wouldn't give him $1, he wouldn't give him a business card. I
dig that, and I'm gonna do that. Hey, can I get your business card? $20. I'm doing that. I think that's great. I'm gonna start implementing that myself. You seem to be in pretty good spirits, Mike, for an industry that, from your words, has been decimated, especially from that graphic too. I mean, it's just been blown around. Right? I mean, you said it, right? I mean, I said decimated, but I mean, I'm just, regurgitating what you said. But you seem to be in good spirits. Like, what has set you up to be able to be okay during this when all hell's broken loose, if you will?
Well, it's taught me something that I forgot, and you tend to forget things as you grow in a business. I went from reactionary to proactionary, and spending my time, I started listening more about what was going on around me. I started learning more about different businesses and all that. And you guys may know this, a lot of people know and some don't. I have a vocation, and what I was originally wanted to do was to be a photographer, be a photojournalist actually. So I kind of got back into that to kill the empty hours. And when it was about a year ago or so, we have an event in Williamsburg that's called Second Sunday, and it's a craft show. And I always went, and I like to look at what people were making and doing. And there were always a couple of photographers, and they were selling pictures of birds and different things. But there's a lot of tourists that go to this show. It's down in Merchant Square in downtown Williamsburg. And they don't, there wasn't any pictures of colonial Williamsburg that people could take home with them. And I spend a lot of my time wandering around colonial Williamsburg because it's a great place to walk and get some exercise. And I shoot a lot of pictures there. So I thought, I've got all this stuff. I'll set up a booth. It'll be fun. It'll give me something to do on a Sunday. And so I set it up, and I did very well doing it. And actually, if you look behind me over there on the couch, there's 6 boxes, which are going to be the new thing in the spring. Those are all 500-piece puzzles. And they're all my photographs. So they're all original puzzles. And you'll be able to buy those. And different things like Tervis mugs and things, but they are all about colonial Williamsburg, so people have something to take home. Because God forbid I should just have fun shooting pictures and not think about it as a business. So that's how I've been keeping busy, Zach, is, I go out and I shoot pictures and I have fun with that.
I mean, it seems like you're taking a business out of it. You're making another business out of that.
But I'm really not, because I don't care if I make any money.
Well, I mean, it would be an easy thing to turn into a business. You already can source all the stuff that needs to be sourced in order to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, how do I puzzleify
couple-
myself? I want to take a picture of myself and make it a puzzle. I mean, is that an expensive proposition? I mean, how do I do that?
I can do that for you.
Here we go.
That's one of the things. So I'm hooked up in a artist group that's called Fine Art America, and some people have heard about them and some people haven't. But it's kind of where all the major companies go to buy their stock images and things for magazines, even Sports Illustrated and those kind of companies. And they're basically a clearinghouse for semi-professional or professional artists, and they can be photographers, sculptors, painters, whatever it is. But they have this huge mechanism to be able to do anything with an image. So in my case, I'm a photographer. So if you go to Fine Art America and you search for Descher, you'll see a few images that are up there, and you can buy them in whatever size you want on whatever substrate, if you want canvas or acrylic or print or a frame print or whatever. But you can also buy a t-shirt and a hat and a mug and a blanket and a throw pillow and a puzzle. You can buy whatever and they'll do it and send it directly to you. So I'm completely out of the loop. I don't make as much money, but I don't have to do anything at all.
I want the whole Zack Miller set.
Yeah. You should do
Well,
that. How about
Tim
that playing
has
card?
seen, actually, my wife for my 30th birthday threw a surprise birthday for me, and I don't know if have you ever heard this story, Tim? Obviously you were there, but she got Jeremy to take a picture. Jeremy sent her the picture of me, and then she got it printed like life size, so that when I walked into this room and there was like family and friends there, I was shocked. And then there's like this life size poster cutout thing of me, and it was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Well,
Is that the one that ended up in Hatch?
that's the one that we kept the Hatch forever. And on my phone recently, it's been showing me these like featured photos, which are like recaps of things that have happened like in your throughout time that you've taken pictures of. And yesterday's was the picture of you with me in that thing, and I almost sent it to you. And I mean, it's just so damn funny. Like, it's can't beat it. You know, it's like there it is. Like, so I want to puzzle that. You know,
You can easily do that. I'd be happy to do it for you if you want.
I love to.
Or I'll point you in the way to do it where you're not going to Shutterfly or somewhere and spending a lot of money.
So if I was to meet you in an elevator that's going up or going down, depending on you know which city, if we're at a networking event and it's social distance and safe to do all those things, what is the Mike Descher pitch that you would say to people at this point?
Hi, it's glad to meet you. What do you do? I try to find out what other people are doing more than tell them about what I'm doing. And
while I tend to agree with that, if there was an elevator pitch, what would it be?
It would be we're a multi-diverse cooperative company that is able to put your name, brand, or anything you want on anything you can think of and help your business grow and expose. And at the same time, we can also help you grow your business by spending less than you're currently spending, by teaching you how to properly work remotely or work in a hybrid environment. Because I think we're coming to a turning point in society where we're going to start working remotely, whether the virus sticks around or not, because a lot of companies are starting to figure out how much money they're wasting. And just like the technological revolution, where we're screwing things together with our hands on an assembly line, and now we've got robots doing it. Now we have people that can just as easily work from home. I had a problem with Cox Cable the other day and was talking with a woman in a wheelchair that worked in Nebraska, who is helping me with some of my IT problems that were going on. So big companies everywhere are doing that. It's used to be uncommon and frowned upon to work remotely. So
when it was forced.
I guess the biggest thing, Zach, would be to kind of ask people if they have remote workers and they're happy with it. And if they're not, then say, I've been doing this since 97 formally and since 90 informally. And, if I can help you in any way, let me know.
Tim, what do you think about the remote style of that? I mean, do you feel like is remote the future? What are you seeing on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's going to be. However, the one caveat to that, though, if asking yourself the question, could, like from a hardware standpoint, could the iPhone have been built with a distributed team? I'm not convinced that it could have been. So there's certain product things that have to be done on site, but so there is going to be some sort of hybrid to that. It's just
Yeah. Well, Apple's a good example. You know, I worked there, and
Yeah.
it was always hybrid at Apple. If you worked on an engineering team, you probably spent 90% of your time there because you really needed to collaborate in person
right.
with somebody, show them on a screen what you just typed, and do that. And even though you can do it on a video conference or whatever, it's just not quite the same. It's not as immediate, not as fast. You can't get as much done. So
Yeah,
something have to be in person.
Yeah, I agree. Has there been a bigger comeback of anything other than the QR code since this thing has happened?
It's interesting.
I mean, QR codes were dead. I mean, those things were like
dead.
There was a good reason, because when QR codes first came out, you never knew where they were going to take you. And a lot of marketing guys got really embarrassed by finding out when somebody took a picture.
Oh yeah, I remember us having a drink that one time, and you were surprised.
Well, I think it's even deeper than that, where it was you had to down the. It was a difficult barrier to entry, right?
Software and
and then when it got built into the actual camera of a phone, removing that barrier, I believe, is why it made it easier. Now, clearly, someone gave someone the go ahead to say, "Hey, go ahead and do this," but the tech was there. It did the thing. Like I don't think it did much difference. Yeah. I mean, you shoot it, put it on the thing.
Yeah, and it's actually a good thing. I mean, even when I'm at Second Sunday with my photography, you can shoot a QR code and go to my website, or you can shoot another one and pay for whatever you're buying.
Restaurants were doing that big time. That's where they're
still are. They're actually, the thing I find funny is more and more places are doing them on television.
Right.
You know, it comes up on your TV screen and you shoot, WTKR does that with their weather. Shoot this on the screen and we'll give you updates to your weather.
I mean,
do you think that's because it's easier to just say, hey, do this, instead of going, go to www.timryan.com.
Yeah, everything, unfortunately, in my opinion, now is immediate. I mean, if you're not making access happen for people immediately where they don't actually have to use their brain, then you're on top of the game.
I mean, I'm sure. I understand the answer to this, but for those that are listening, from a QR code standpoint, are you seeing people use those on products? But then if they are, you need to make sure that you have a list somewhere of all the links that you're pointing people to, because on one side, people are like, "Hey, we want to measure the ROI of this QR code," but then if you change landing pages, then if it goes to a dead link, then that's not any good either. So, what have you seen on your end regarding that, or are they just sending everyone to a homepage of some kind?
People are using them in different ways, and you're right. If you don't keep on top of it, but that can be said for any kind of marketing program. I can't tell you how many times I'll get somebody send me a marketing thing with, go to this link, and you go to the link and it's a 404 not found.
Yeah.
Whoever did it, they haven't checked it themselves before they let it out. But there are people using them to go for specific things for specific times. I ran into one guy who actually did a business. We did a business card, and his whole business card was just a QR code on the front. And he very rarely had to give them out. People would look at it and go, "What's this?" And well, just shoot it with your phone, and then you'll have all my info. And it went into their address book. I never ended up
doing this, but the last business card, I decided I just never wanted business cards again, which is why I didn't do it. But the last business card that I decided I wanted to do was just going to be at Zack Miller Says, like it says on the screen. That's all my handles. It's everything, the URL, everything. And that was it. And people, if they weren't smart enough to figure out what that meant, then I didn't really want to work with them, I guess, right? And so, I mean, it's kind of like it's similar to a QR code, make it stupid simple. And I mean, good for that comeback tour.
When you think about a business card, it's really just a reminder for somebody to make it easy to find you again.
Mm-hmm.
So if they don't want to find you, chances are they've thrown out your business card on their way out of the building.
Or they're in that box.
Yeah, or somewhere,
I got that box. I got 1,000 of them.
Yeah, at one time I used to keep every business card I got until, those 1,000 count boxes that are about 1.5 feet long. I had like 10 of those full of everybody I'd ever met over years and years. And I just went, this is silly. And
That's
I
an old school CRM.
Yeah, I threw them out.
Yeah.
You threw them out. That's hilarious.
And
how do you define brand?
Couldn't find who?
You've used the word brand a lot. How do you define brand?
Something that somebody looks at and knows who you are without seeing your product. A good example of that is Apple. If you can look at an Apple product and know it's made by Apple without seeing the logo on it, because you become so attuned to the quality, workmanship, and style that you know the style, you know what it is. Coca-Cola, if you saw a bottle with a red label on it and it didn't have their logo or anything else, you would assume it was Coca-Cola. If it had a blue label, you'd assume it was PepsiCo. If it was yellow and green, you'd assume it's Mountain Dew. So
It would be what? Yellow and green with who?
Mountain Dew.
Mountain Dew.
Mountain Dew, the one that makes you spin around in circles and keep the NASCAR going.
Nope. I'm scared of that.
All sugar and caffeine kill you right away. So,
Mike, I was before as we get ready to close. So I think about you. The pen that I use every day and the coaster that I use are prominently on my desk.
Well, thank you. So that means it's working. So for all of you people listening, he held up a coaster stone and a stylus pen. And if you don't think giving away swag works, talk to Tim, because he's had those for
at least longer than 2 years. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's a frequency thing, right? Or it's a quantity thing. You got to get it out in droves. And if you don't, you don't. But if someone's writing a note, who can I call?
That's right.
Huh.
It's like mouse pads. Who uses a mouse pad anymore? Well, I do, but I use this one. That's just a sample of it because I can also write on it. So
is it like a dry erase type of thing, or is it?
No, when I've written enough on it, I just rip the page off.
Oh, gotcha.
It's like a memo pad. But
I remember I'd interviewed a lady, Tracy Link from Integrity Security, a couple years ago, and she bought a ton of Bic pens, and that was the thing that got her, like branded Bic pens, and that was what got her past the the secretary's desk, or even at the secretary's desk, they wanted a better Bic pen, so she bought an upgraded Bic pen, and that's what it took to get past that kind of gatekeeper, if you will. And so, yeah, I think you there's a little bit of luck in there too, I guess, but I mean, you just got to go after it.
Well, that would be the other piece of advice. If you're going to give somebody a pen, make sure you give them one that writes on everything all the time and is a high quality, pen for writing.
Same goes with shirts, right? They're not gonna, if you don't want someone just to wear that as pajamas.
Yeah. Or if you want a shirt that looks like this. So you people there can't see it, but this is a guy that owned a vacuum forming machine and did a thing for a cruise line with T-shirts that they could sell. So there's this T-shirt. And it's just a regular white logo T-shirt like he'd give away, but he shrinks them up into this little bitty package.
Interesting.
And that's the shape of it's folded, packaged in the shape of a cruise ship.
Yeah, it looks like a cruise ship. So you can buy these on the cruise line when you forgot your ship. This is for Princess Cruises. Oh, sorry, I probably shouldn't have said that. But you could buy these for $10 and it's all shrunk up and you can stick it in your luggage really easy. And when you unfold it, it goes poof.
What?
That was a pivot from a guy that owned a vacuum forming company in Chattanooga, Tennessee, who said, "Gee, I wonder what would happen if I put a piece of clothing in there." And he came up with this idea. He wasn't in the industry. Came up with, and then he sent a sample of this to Princess Cruises.
So, what my final question I have for you that just popped in my head? You of all people would know the answer to this, so I'm curious to know from a vintage swag standpoint. Is there a secondary market for like old school swag that was distributed out like an old Apple thing that now has a ridiculous value of some kind that's sold on the secondary market, if you will?
Absolutely. Look on eBay. You'll see them all the time. And Apple's a good example. I have a friend who just sold forget what it was, but some piece of swag that we got many years ago, and he sold it for $25,000. So at an auction.
Is it like the 5-year anniversary thing or something, or what? I mean, that's wow, that's insane.
It was the first of an Apple II advertisement or something like that he got internally. So of course I called him up immediately and said, so how'd you do that? Because I got a whole closet full of crap.
Well, and the thing is, though, I mean, that's when you won. You did something really well if it has the staying power of something like that and continues to appreciate value. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, there are lots of things like that, especially
I'm gonna go buy some Tesla T-shirts.
I would buy them now.
Something like that. I mean,
you want to buy Origin T-shirts right now.
Well, it's interesting. I have some old Tesla coloring books. Tesla doesn't spend anything in marketing, but they have these. So this is like old school stuff that I'm just holding on to because you'll never see anything like that again.
But that's the best stuff, is find somebody that works at a company that they only made swag for internal people. Like I have a Think Different jacket that they only gave them to our team. There were 12 people. So it's a black jacket. I think you've seen it on the back. It's just got the Apple logo and says Think Different underneath, for a campaign they did a while ago. So it's one of about 12, and I keep thinking maybe I should sell it, but I like it too much.
Well, $25,000 might make your decision
Yeah,
a little easier. So, Mike, it's been a pleasure chatting again. We'll chat again in 2 years, see how things are going. Hopefully they're on the up for the market, but it seems like you've pivoted well, and I appreciate your time.
Hope so. Thank you guys so much for having me on.
Thanks, Mike.
It's been fun.
Awesome.
Peace.
So long.
Take it easy.
Subscribe now.
That's right.
And all
Fervent
that
Four.
stuff.
That's right.
Get on the list. Don't miss it.